While SharePoint 2010 does work with Office 2007 and even with earlier versions of Office, the elegance between the products is always going to be with the corresponding versions. SharePoint 2010 and Office 2010 were released on the same day. The teams worked alongside each other when developing them. Now, we've already seen quite a few ways that SharePoint works with Office. Let's go a little deeper into working with Word 2010. And really, you can divide the whole relationship between SharePoint and Word in a very simple two ways. Where do you want to start? Are you in SharePoint wanting to drive some behavior in Word, or are you in Word wanting to do something in SharePoint? If you're in SharePoint, as you can probably imagine, a lot of what you do with Word is driven from a document library and is going to be driven from the ribbon or from the drop-down menu that you find beside a Word document. We've already seen options like Edit in Microsoft Word, either available from the drop-down or, if you have the document selected, available from the ribbon. We've seen that the default new document template for a document library is a blank Word document, and that the integration between these is quite tight in terms of making simple changes. Having said that, if you go from the Microsoft Word side, for example, that you either have existing documents or you're creating new documents just locally on your own machine, the question might still be, what do you do with a fairly simple document if you want to get that into SharePoint? Well, if you're in Word, most of what you do from SharePoint can be driven from the new 2010 style File menu, particularly the Info section and Save and Send. In fact, because I haven't saved this document yet, I'm going to go to my Save and Send section, where I'll find a Save to SharePoint. Now, if I've been saving to some recent locations, I'll see them there, including the one I want to save to. Otherwise, I could browse for a location and paste in the address of another SharePoint site. Clicking Save As, we've got a second simple document here. I'll call it another simple document. And click Save. Now, if I go back to the File menu, you'll find that it knows a little bit more information now. We get this address of the document itself. We get the fact that it's going to really be the 0.1 version because this document library has versioning enabled. If you wanted to, you could also check out directly from this section of Word as well. And using the Info section, you could also even give this document a title. This will be a piece of metadata added to the document in SharePoint. I'm going to actually close this down and save it. And I'll just go back to my document library to make sure we're refreshing the view. And there we get the new document here. If I choose to view the properties, we'll see the metadata attached to it, including the interesting title that I just added in Word. Now, if you do have either a lot of custom metadata added to a library or even just the simple things like title, you can get that available in Word as well. Going back into Word, I'm going to open this up, and from the Info pane, I'm going to click my Properties section and say Show the Document Panel. And what that actually does is open up this little section of the window where it's going to read the SharePoint library and any piece of metadata. We've only got one now with title, but if I had more fields with drop-down lists and date pickers, you'd actually find them spread along this document properties panel. I'm going to close that down. Now, one new thing in this version of SharePoint and Word is something called co-authoring. I'm going to open up this hiring procedures document and say Edit in Microsoft Word. And within a few seconds, I'll get a little pop-up that somebody else is editing this document, and click the status bar. Right now, it believes that 2 people are editing it. You can have even more. And what it will start to do is actually highlight where it's detecting edits happening from another person. And if you see the message here, it's saying to avoid conflicts, it's detected that Heather Conway is editing that section, and I can't edit that until Heather finishes editing it and uploads it to the server. After she makes her change, the note will change to Updates are available, so save your document to refresh this area. I'm going to save it. It's actually going to fetch the changes from the document. It's going to give me a prompt here that it's refreshed it with changes made by other authors. Looks okay. And I can see that highlighted, that Heather's change has just appeared in green. Now, co-authoring won't work if you have your document library set to require checkout. It kind of makes sense. If you tell SharePoint that you're checking out a document and claiming it just for yourself, you can't also say that you want others to work in it at the same time. You can still have versioning on a document library and still work with co-authoring. And finally, if your administrator has installed Office web applications, you will have the browser-based version of Word available from the drop-down menu that you can either view a document in the browser or you can edit it in the browser. The editing ability is not fully featured Word. It's a cut-down version with just some simple styles and some simple layout tools, but it's certainly very convenient, particularly if you're on a machine that doesn't have Office installed, and this will work cross-platform, cross-browser. It'll work in Internet Explorer, Firefox, and Safari. Of course, at the end of the day, 99% of what you do in Word is what you've always done, and the slight differences are really in opening, saving, and editing your files, the co-authoring being new in 2010, the web-based version of Word, and the info and save and send panels in Word, not the actual creation of the document, not the actual layout and changing of the document, but really the start and end of the life cycle of that is where we have some changes with SharePoint.